guys, how you doing? I just wanted to chime in here. The first 4 or 5 minutes of Gabe and I's podcast got cut off because I wasn't wearing headphones. Still learning, but also just still putting it out there so you guys can get it. And I wanted to give Gabe a proper introduction. His name's William Gabriel Grier, and we talked about, you know, his name and going through the single name Gabe Grier or William Gabriel Grier, because I find it very interesting people's names in this industry, so I'm sort of starting there. But anyway, the rest is almost 2 hours. Gabe's awesome, an incredible person, and an amazing artist. So I look forward to you guys hearing the rest of the pod. Thank you. How'd you get to
LA? Wow. So, okay. So as I said, I'm from Colorado Springs, right? Love Colorado Springs. Literally was like, I could stay here my whole life. Had no plans or intentions. Loved traveling, but had no plans or intention of leaving Colorado Springs. And as we spoke about, I'm super close with my family. And have always been, my father and I, a lot of our bonding time was us going to the movie theater. We love movies. I mean, he's been taking me to movies since I was 6 months old, and just like that's always been like a big part of it. And he was part of a group, TheaterWorks, since 1978. And so I also grew up kind of backstage. And this is a little insight into me.
Remember when he did a sketch with us?
Yeah.
Like, he's the best. Sorry, that just came to memory. It was so fun.
Yeah.
I always laugh when I see it.
Yeah, because he brings this like, yeah, he's just so unique, you know? And so I grew up backstage, like at least he'd do like at least a play a year, you know, maybe sometimes two.
Wow.
Always like grow up kind of backstage in like this place TheaterWorks, right? And the realest people, for good or for worse, you know, for better or for worse, are actors. They are just so like raw, and that was always something that I was drawn to, because I'd have these conversations with adults, and adults treat you like a child. They're like, yeah, whatever, we're not having this in-depth conversation. But actors would just be like messed up. They're like, oh man, like I broke up with my girlfriend last night, and you know, I've been sober and I just went back to drinking because of it. And so like my day's totally screwed. And then they'd go out on stage and then just come back and be complete messes. But it was this like such a beautiful thing to me of like, oh, this is like the real human condition. This is what people really go through, you know? And it was just so fascinating. So I was really just enamored with actors and performers, and so I got to grow up around that. And then I owned a restaurant with my family for a year. Terrible, you know, for all of those looking to open a restaurant. Hey, more power to you, but no. And so I was open for a year, and I spent the next 4 years working off debt from that, and just working off debt, and just working at different restaurants and whatever I could. But I was also tapping back into my creative side. I've always been interested in like filmmaking and things like that. And so I was making these little short films in Colorado Springs when people weren't doing this a lot. It wasn't so easy to just like pick up your phone and record a movie and make sketches, and you know, TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff definitely was not around, you know. Facebook wasn't
true.
it was like MySpace, you know, and then Facebook was kind of only for college students, you know, that sort of network. And so a lot of this stuff wasn't around. But I started saying that, and then people were like, oh yeah, you should be an actor. You know, people that have no sort of idea of anything, and they're like, you're really interesting. You should be an actor. And I was like, I am an actor. You know, that's what I've been acting since I was 7 years old, but not like serious about it. I wasn't like a theater person because it's almost like I was in a bigger theater company because I had worked with like theater work since I was 7 until I was like 17. And so like ego wise, I was almost like too good for high school drama and too good for whatever, like terrible sort of thought. But I felt like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started talking. I'm like, well, I am an actor. I am an actor. And there was a guy who would come into. I worked at this place called Champs. He would come in and he'd sit around the bar. I was bartending for lunch. He would always eat. He was a financial investor, and him and I would just have these like interesting offshoot conversations. His name was Vincente, and we'd have these interesting little offshoot conversations here and there. And this was like on and off for a year, but like total, him and I probably talked like 10 times. And it wasn't like, hey, let's hang out afterwards. We just have these interesting in passing conversations when he's sitting at the bar eating lunch, right? And I saw him the night before he actually moved. I worked at a nightclub. I was a bouncer at a nightclub, and he came in, and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?" I was like, "What's up?" He's like, "I'm moving to Los Angeles tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. How come?" And he's like, "I got a writing job for Universal." Now, he worked for T. Rowe Price, purely financial guy, right? But he's led a super interesting life uh, I mean, just, I won't even get into like all of his business.
Wild.
Got raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and just like super interesting. And he was with his friend Tavon, and he's a clothing designer. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking of moving out there too." And it was interesting. And him and I just kind of talked about movies. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm an actor and all this stuff." And he's like, "Cool. Well, let's exchange phone numbers and we'll chat." And I was like, "Great." Uh, he's out in Los Angeles. I called him 2 weeks later. Right. This is August. I called him 2 weeks later, and he's like, "I turned down the writing job for Universal. I got a job as a private banker for new multimillionaires, so people who are just signing their first music contract or whatnot." He's like, "I'm having lunches with Will I Am and all these people," and he's like, "I don't know what to do with like these contacts because like I'm not the creative type person." He's like, "You're the talented one. You should move out here." Now, I have a 4-bedroom house in Colorado, and I have a couple different roommates. You know, but this is my house, this is childhood house I grew up in, and he's like, "You should move out here," and I just went, "Okay," and I instantly hung up the phone and posted on my social media, "Hey guys, moving out to Los Angeles."
Wild.
And again, I said I was never gonna leave Colorado Springs. I had a job. I was complacent. I was like stacking money and like, but I wasn't pushing myself. And I'm a very ambitious person. But like, I had gotten to a point where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm complacent. Things are good. And I posted on my social media, and this is how stupid I was. It didn't even dawn on me. But my roommates came home and they're like, "Hey, Debbie, yeah, hey,
Yeah.
uh, what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not moving tomorrow, but I don't know. This just seems like the right move." And like this phone call, he had moved in August. This phone call was in September, and I was out here December. I was out here December 7th,
What year?
2007.
Wow. And how old were you?
20. So 27. 27.
See, I want to highlight that because I think that's even more badass. You know, I was 20, I was 21. I had nothing going on, right? I was just like, yeah, LA or nothing. I don't know. And so
Yeah.
you had stuff going on. You had a life.
and this was the interesting story. My gosh. So this is the crazy thing, right? Vince again had some connections, and he's like, I was like, I got nowhere to live, but I've already like, we're already like, this has already happened. It's surprising how quickly I moved on this,
Yeah.
and and I had been offered to move different places before, and I'm like, no, why would I ever leave Colorado? And so here's the thing. So I had a friend who was an actor. I actually had two friends who were an actor, and there was I just won't mention her name. She was a female. She was on one of the Making of the Bands, and then she had her own show on MTV. And all four of us were going to move out here. Like I just talked to them, and they're like, "Yes, please. This is what I've been waiting for." They had already like talked about moving to Los Angeles. She was already in the process, and Vince calls me and he's like, "Listen, I have a mansion on overlooking the beach on in Pacific Palisades." I knew nothing of where this was, you know. And he's like, "You'll basically be paying $2,000 a month in rent, like total between all of you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I wish I had have known that like now, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. So in the next few months, like the everybody was on it, right? I'm not gonna mention names, but guy number one was like, "Yep, I'm out there with you." Guy number two was like, "Yep, I'm out there with you." She was like, "Yep, I'm out there with you." And then it's November, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up? We got to start making these plans." Like I've literally packed up my house. I packed up my home. My roommates have gotten a new place to live. I packed up my home, and they're like, "Yep, still on it, still coming out." I was like, "Okay, great." And then she ended up getting a record deal with, well, someone who an agent who was going to like pay for her record deal and pay for all of this for her to produce her first album. And she's like, "He says that that's too far for me to live. I need to be in Studio City." And I was like, "Okay, I respect that, you know."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was like, "But you do realize like the deal that you're getting." And so I was like, "All right, well, all right, I'm down to three people now, like for this mansion and you know." And at the time, like $2,000 a month in rent was like nuts to me. I couldn't afford that by
Yeah.
myself. I needed
Oh
other
my
people.
God.
And and then like one of the other guys, because I'm supposed to be out there the first week of December, and it's right before Thanksgiving, and I'm like, "Hey man, like when are you getting out there? Whatnot?" "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to go."
Mm-hmm.
"Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool." Other guy, "Yep, still going." "Okay, man, are you packed up? Or you have your stuff? Like, we're moving to Los Angeles." "Yep, still going." "Okay, I got to figure out how to make this work because like it's just you and me." "Yeah, I don't know if I can afford that much." "Okay." So then I'm like talking to Vince. I'm like, "Vince, I'm sorry, man. Like, as awesome as this place sounds, like I got to scramble." So we're trying to scramble and find a place, right? For two people, and then obviously you got to sign a lease, you got to do all this stuff. So then it's like last minute, I'm leaving in 2 days. My entire house is packed in a truck, and I'm like, "Hey, are you coming?" Doesn't respond to anything that I'm going, and I'm like, "Vince,
Whoa.
I'm driving out there tomorrow. I don't have a place to live, and I did, and
Mm.
now I don't, and I have a house that's packed up, and I can't do anything here." And he's like, "It's fine. Let me make a phone call." He called somebody. It was a TV producer living up in Tahunga, lives in this crazy mansion, and he's like, "Okay, you'll be staying with her." So I was staying with her, but she was charging me $2,000 a month in rent
Oh my God.
for a room. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could have just kept this first place
Yeah.
like to
Yeah.
myself." And I have a 4-bedroom house with all the furniture and stuff. And so I'm supposed to cram this into a room. Anyway, get out here.
Oh my God.
I'm only able to survive for 2 months on that. And then I have to move out. And I couldn't find a job. And so like that's
Wow.
and I was
Jobs were tough back then. And
yeah,
you were homeless for
3 years.
how long?
3 years. I lived
Yeah,
in my
you're a motherfucking savage, dude. I met you during that time, and you were
yeah,
just so like, what I liked about it, and I'm sure you have feelings about it, but it didn't seem like you shamed yourself. It was
mhm,
just like, nah, this is what I gotta do to get to the next thing, and I'm gonna do it, and it's all good, and I make it work. Like that was the vibe I got always.
yeah, and it was like this because like all this stuff that was happening, and that one guy who just ghosted me called me like 3 weeks later, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm getting my stuff up. I should be out there in a few months." And I was like, "Bro, like what?"
Yeah.
But we still tried to make it work. But that was the thing is like I got out here and I got into a community of like actors and whatnot, and that was it. That was like the focus.
Mm,
And I was just so grateful. We talk about that like gratitude and like whatever, man. I had a 24-hour membership. I was learning on how to park. All my stuff was in storage, so I'm paying
mm-hmm.
$100 a month in rent for
I
all my
know.
stuff in storage. And I'm getting up with the sun and I'm going in. I go to the gym. That's where I shower and I get a workout in. So that's like a great way to start the day, and then I find, Playhouse West. This is a little bit later. And I'm just going to classes and I'm consuming and I'm like living this.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel like poor me. It felt
Mm,
like this is a choice that I'm making, and I choose to put my money into my craft. I choose to put my money into like becoming like the best actor I can. And what's crazy is like I seem more like put together when I was living in my car than like elsewhere. I was like, how did I keep my clothes so like clean and pressed and like I look so
I
like good?
know. I
Like,
know. You always look fresh.
like later, and they're like,
Mhm.
"You've been homeless for this whole time?" And
I
I was like,
know. No
"Car."
idea.
Like, bro, you're so put together, and so yeah, so I know that was like you're like, how did you get out here? But it was such a like crazy story to just like basically like flip your life in 4 months and just go, I'm going for this, and just like it hasn't, I haven't really like looked back.
No, you haven't. I'm glad you haven't either. Um, Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're one of my favorite actors, dude, and I love watching you work. And I love like, for example, in the stocking fields, when they take the bag off of you, you're like, because you're seeing the sun for the first time,
Yeah.
and I was just like, that like that shade, that detail. Dude, I think you did such incredible work on that film, and many of the films we've done together, like even movie quoters. One of our first sketches, like you're playing a character. I'm like, where the fuck did this guy come up with this? And it so works. Or Dobo
Yeah.
McMuffins. I watched that recently. You know what? That holds up.
Yeah.
That holds up. I
Man.
mean, whew, that just some of the fun. So the reason I bring that up is, what would you say, like what's your process now?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, what's the way you approach that your part, and how does that inform maybe your teaching, and does your teaching inform your acting? So it's kind of the ballpark question there.
Uh, yeah, great question. So I think that, well, we'll go to like what influences my teaching, and um, it was interesting to watch directors and also some teachers that have this like grandiose ego that was
Mm,
always so off-putting that like people like that directors sometimes didn't talk to like their actors like they're human beings, or didn't
mm,
talk to like people with just like respect. And And so that sort of translated into like me watching people teach, and then people being so like rigid, like this is the way, this is absolutely the way, you know. And I've gotten to watch so many amazing artists in so many different like facets, and like how do they
Mm.
get there. So me just asking like, how does this person like approach their artistry, which is great, like how we talk about here, you know. And and just like pulling from everywhere is like I have this wonder and this curiosity as to like how people create amazing transformative art, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my process changed when my love of craft set in. Because and this is what I tell my students. I'm like, hey, what are you doing this for? Like, why do you want to do this? And there's no wrong answers. If your answer is like, I want to be so rich I can't even stand it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's valid. If it's like, I want to be so famous that literally every person in the world knows me, okay, great, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And some people are just like, I can't do anything else, or I just love acting so much, or this appeals to me, or this is therapy to me. And listening to people, and having this curiosity for folks, you know, I go, okay, how do I get that out of everyone? How do I get everybody's best performance when they all want different things, you know?
Mm.
And uh and so I just had to like open up. And so when I stopped being like, oh, I want to be just rich and famous, um that's what clicked for me. And some people, that's what they want, and they're fantastic artists. But I fell in love with like the artistry of this. I fell in love with this like real experience. You and I, you know, went to Playhouse West, and there's these like each we have all these different exercises, right? That are
Yeah.
offered, these tools and things like that. And it's when I started to like master those and make them my own, there was this freedom. There was this freedom. And
Mm.
I remember like having, we do something, it's repetition, right? You're just repeating the first thing back and forth. And I remember the first time of like, you know, you go, oh, this repetition is easy. This repetition is easy. And I remember the first time of rehearsing with a partner, and her and I were just, I don't want to get too far off the topic, but her and I were just doing repetition back and forth. And we're like, okay, well, we got another 5 minutes. And she's like, I got to be home in 15 minutes. So let's do this for 5 minutes. And it was like, okay, good. We're just going to do this for 5 minutes. And we started doing repetition back and forth and just call and behavior. And like, I got it. Like everything
Mm.
else went away, and I was so like focused on this other person. And I was like, oh, okay, it's definitely been 5 minutes. We gotta like, you gotta get out of here. And to me, I thought it was probably like 10 minutes, and we looked down, and it had been an hour. And
Whoa. Whoa. You really
it
got lost.
it blew my mind, and then I said, I know what's possible here. I know what's possible. And so then I just started diving in, and we do doors and activities, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then to like lose yourself and to go, oh my gosh, this is the work. Like I felt transformed. I had this truthful experience, which is the acting that I feel that I value and respect, you know, the most is like having this real experience. And
Mm.
so now, and having written and everything like that. So my process, right? Everything reads differently, and I try not to be so rigid on every single. I'm not like this is my process no matter what. I look at a script,
Right.
and I look for what's called for, and I think my directing and producing and writing, oh my gosh, has helped me so much to go. What do I feel like this is calling to me for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Like, what does my process have to be? If you're doing something like a Tennessee Williams play, and it's like, though every single word, every single line, every single word means something, and he writes in such poetry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, my process, it has to be I have to like remove myself. If I'm doing Shakespeare, like I have to like, I can't just naturally look at the script and go, oh, this is how I normally talk, so what is my feeling here? I have to like strip that
That's
down and
right.
go, what am I saying here? Okay, how do I say that? What is my situation? Just understand it. And then if there
Mm-hmm.
is like a characterization to it, right? Um, it's like it's like, what do I want to do with this? Like, what kind of stuff do I want to bring to this? What's fun to me? And I never want to like, I always want to keep this fun. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
it could be the most depressing role in the world, the most heart wrenching role in the world, but I'm like, I have to have fun with this. I have to
Oh,
enjoy
for
this. I'm like
sure.
finding like these things. And so it, it, it changes. So sometimes it's like, can I find this organically? And if I can't, then I have to
Mm.
like flip it the other way. And then like really find my empathy. And I think going through life, like really trying to understand what people go through on a day-to-day basis, things that I can't understand. And I'll just give an example of like, a long time ago, a woman was like, hey, you don't know what it's like to just not be able to run at night because you're so afraid of being assaulted. And like I had to reach in and go, what do I understand about being on high alert all the time?
Mm.
And then just sit
Mm.
in that and go, oh my gosh, can I understand like what that feeling is like to be like to be a woman who feels that way, feels like I have to be on high alert because I'm always on danger. And like, so sitting in that and go, okay, like, is this character, is this somebody I can empathize with? And if I
Mm.
can't, I really have to do some deep digging. So then if it's like so far out of like my wheelhouse of understanding, I got to go talk to those people. If I didn't have an understanding of what being homeless was like, I'd go and just sit with somebody and go,
Mm-hmm.
what is your life like? What is that like when people don't look at you ever? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
look to people and they avoid you all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
I was thinking about that the other day. Yeah.
yeah. And so if I can't empathize, then I gotta like dig deep and go, okay, here. And then we talk
Mm.
about like, why am I doing this? Why? And why is the biggest question to me. And if I can't answer those whys, then then I haven't fully done like the homework I need to. And then like what we were talking in the stocking fields, it's like taking this hood off. It's like, where am I coming from? What
Mm-hmm.
did I just experience? How long have I had this on? And like, what does this mean? So like, I'm not like the method kind where I'll like put myself, but it was a little bit like method of just going like, okay, this is what it's like. What's it like when I don't know where I'm going? So like, if we were driving to set or just driving out there, somebody else is driving, I'm like closing my eyes and like, what's it like to not know what's going on? Oh, what does this feel like when it's
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like, but that's like play. That's the hard work, but also like, if you love this craft, that's what you get to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a good trust. Like for me, on the stocking fields, the last scene, the emotional one, is that we referred to it in the post. Like that
Yeah,
was some of my easiest acting on the movie, honestly, because by that point I had trusted. It was hilarious. Jordan and I had gotten into a row right before it about something on set, and I was just like, ah, I'm feeling like I got to use this, and I just pulled out this technique as sort of like the river to flow the energy through. Kind of a weird way to describe it, but I think you understand. And
absolutely.
retroactively, it's like I trusted. I didn't try and be like, well, this is the emotional scene. I'm supposed to prepare like this. I was just like, no, no, no. I know I'm going to get there. But today it's like this. And so we'll
Yeah,
send it over there and just trusting whatever happens is supposed to happen.
that's huge, man. And I love that you talk about this. And I've gotten to like, man, I love this is why you and I still work together, at least from my side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I've gotten to watch you just grow as an artist so much. And here's the thing about you, Sean, is like you're you've been talented. You're very, very talented.
No,
And
thank you.
you could be somebody that just was like, I'm talented, I got this, like, let's go. You are the type of person who could have an ego that like eventually hinders you. But you put the work in, man. You do work on
Thank you.
yourself, and and it's like it that's like the hard work, like that people don't understand, like because I talk about like what hard work is, right? And me just being
Mm.
like real is like, why isn't Gabe a celebrity right now? And I've had to ask
Yeah,
myself that question, right? Is because I talk with
fair,
people.
fair
And when
question.
I work with people, they're like, you're amazing to work with. And like, I love everything that you do. And I go, this is fantastic for people that I've worked with. Why have I not transitioned over into that, like, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
working all the time? And
Mm-hmm.
into things that I can control. And here's the thing is like, I got to a point where like hard work changed what that means, and I didn't catch it. I didn't catch that change before, when you
Mm-hmm.
and I were young and green and like and we're still young, uh, but green and just getting into that hard work is quantity and consistency and getting after,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And growing and growing, and then the hard work got to a place, and this is what I preach to my students, and that I didn't 100% do, was like, get out of your comfort zone. I
Mm.
I took risks, but if I'm honest with myself, they were calculated risks. And I don't let
Mm.
my students get away with that. And I don't let my friends get away with that. Because it's like you go in and you get told that you're amazing all the time, right? And that can be a trap. You can get addicted to that.
For sure.
You can get addicted
Yeah,
to,
it cuts both ways.
right. I go in and it's like, oh, Gabe, this is amazing work, like what I'm seeing. And you forget that class is training, it's not a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
this is what I tell my students. I go, hey, if you are amazing every time that you come in here, you're boring. You're boring. You're not
Mm-hmm.
you're not pushing yourself. Because if you were
Mm-hmm.
pushing yourself, you wouldn't be good.
Good for you.
Be good all the
I
time.
know.
You come in
We've
here,
done some awful
yeah.
exercises. I remember one time Holly was like, "What the fuck was that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm fucking bored. 4.5 years here." Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I hear
And,
you.
and like like Carnegie started at school like can be intimidating, right?
For
And so
sure.
you like at times don't take risks. And Casey Schlosser, one of my best friends on this planet, like amazing man, amazing, bro.
Truly the best.
I mean, so I'm quick like so during activity, right? There's structure to it that you can play with, and you're supposed to come to the door as himself. He tells me, "Hey, I'm gonna come to the door as a robot from the future, and I'm going to tell this woman that I love her, but I can't talk." And he builds this robot costume out of cardboard, and like they call him back and he's like, "Hey Gabe, come back here, help me put this on." And bro, I'm
We
like,
should we should reemphasize that it's a big deal to be yourself, because like Carnegie is convinced at the elementary level, especially, like you got to figure that out before you can add to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So it's
And
scary what he's doing. It's terrifying.
it's terrifying. And to like push these boundaries, and I'm like, I literally, I'm like, bro, you are gonna get eviscerated by Carnegie. Like there's something big consequence, but when you're in school and this is all that you want, you're like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna tell you to get out, and you're not gonna be able to come back from the school. And Casey, I mean, so he goes, he knocks on the door, answer the door. His partner is like, oh, what? And he can't talk. And he just has this like little rose that's like and it hands it to her, and she's like, okay. And he's like acting off of her reaction still. Like she's like, oh, okay. And he's just like crestfallen. And Carnegie goes, gives the critique to the girl, and he's like, you totally didn't like work off of this and this and this. And he's like, Casey, really excellent work working off of this and this and that. And I just went, oh my God. Wow. And I'm like, what am I so afraid of? And like, I get emotional, man, because like the people that I surround myself with are just like such beautiful inspirations. I talk about Casey. Dude, he's doing a scene in class from Shadowbox.
He's effortlessly courageous.
Yeah, effortlessly courageous. He's doing the scene Shadowbox in class. He talks to me. He's like, I'm putting this up in 2 weeks. Loses 13 pounds in 2 weeks for a scene in class. It's a rehearsal. It's not like in front of like people. Loses 13 pounds. He's already a skinny dude. Loses 13 pounds. Right before he goes up, he's like, can I have a little bit of extra time? Can somebody go before me? And Holly's like, yeah, go ahead. Goes out back. He's like, Gabe, here, shave my head. I shaved his head. And then like, and again, this is like a rehearsal. This isn't even the full play.
So good.
And just like goes and answers the door. His partner, who's usually like phenomenal, is just like off that day. And just
Who
like
was it?
It was Helene.
Mm-hmm. She's
Helene,
amazing.
yeah, incredible. She's great. And just like again, was probably off because Casey had a full head of hair 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And then doesn't when he answers the door and is like so frail. And like, so she's not working out, and like to see that through, and I just go, oh man. And he's not doing it for like the wrong reasons. He's not doing it to impress anybody. And
he's
like
doing it to see how far he can go. Yeah.
It's so brilliant. So anyway, I got off on, but back to you, man. Like, I got to this place, even after all of that, even after seeing all of Casey, where I was just going in and like, I'm pushing myself and I'm doing crazy out of the box stuff like he is to try and find stuff, but it's not like pushing me in the areas that I need to. Like, I'm not out there taking auditioning classes, and auditioning is the fucking worst. Like, it's just like, I'm not bringing my truthful self into auditions. So like,
It's
I'm not
really challenging. Yeah.
And I'm going, hey, this was the hard work. You needed to put yourself in auditioning situations, but it hurts. It hurts to go back and just go, oh, man, I'm failing at this. This is a major deficit in my area. And like the auditioning, like I keep relying on people love working with me. They see my work and it's amazing, but I'm auditioning and they're like, and I know I'm capable of it. I've been so close. I just happen to know that it was me or another person in major films. In 3 of them that I feel like would have absolutely changed my career. I don't know how far, but I went on 7 auditions for Last Black Man in San Francisco. And that didn't click with me. That didn't click over 2 years. It didn't fucking click with me that, hey, man, they really like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Majors gets that part. And I don't know if
He's
it's all
okay.
he did. Yeah, he's okay. But I don't
He's
know if
incredible. He's incredible.
all the stuff that he did before that like skyrockets his career.
Mm,
But that's the first thing I see him in.
yeah. No, I
100%
know.
on Rotten Tomatoes, and then just like Scott. So you can't like. I go, damn. This is what I was talking about, the hard work. But you put in this hard work on yourself, man. And like I said, it comes back to you put this work in, and I see it. I see those little things, right?
Thank you.
It's not like it's like, oh man, how many hours did you put in to make this moment great? You know, it's like, did you take 3 hours to make this moment great? No, I took decades to make this that good. And there's so many great moments, man, you had in Stalking Fields that I was
Oh,
like,
thank you.
yes, Sean, yes. I just go, yes, because I know the work you put in, man. I know
Thank you.
like the literal blood, sweat, and so many tears that have gone into this. And it's all the unseen stuff, man. And like that's what I say is like you don't just settle. You don't just go like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Like you keep growing and it totally shows, man. It's brilliant. So I love working with you, man, and like I appreciate you and you're inspirational and you inspire me. So like this is great, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that because it's easy to fall into the victim for me.
Mhm.
To be my victim, to be a victim.
Yeah.
Like for example, I had a reckoning with Helmet. I've been submitting it. Helmet's a project Gabe and I worked on. He acted, I directed and wrote and did a little acting as well. And it's like the best work I've ever personally done in that capacity, like that overall capacity. And I'd been submitting it to film festivals, short film festivals specifically. And, we were getting into like one every 8. And I was like, whoa. And I started looking at the people who are accepted. And I started writing narratives as to why. And I was like, yeah, it's because X or it's because Y. And luckily, this only lasted a few weeks because it wasn't the forefront of my mind, like the film festival. Like I wasn't losing sleep. But when
Yeah.
it came up, this would be the conversation. And all of a sudden, there was this voice that came in and was like, maybe you're just not there. Maybe that's an option too. And it wasn't beating me up. Like it wasn't some voice from the past that was like, you suck, you're not good. It was maybe you weren't good enough yet. And so what I was able to do is take a step back and go, huh, what line of thinking even behooves me long term best? Is it they got this because X? Even if that's true, does that line of thinking benefit me? And the answer is fuck no.
Right.
And the other line of thinking improves me long term.
Right.
And so when I did that, it let me re examine my submissions to Helmet. And what I realized is I was submitting it like a short film. But if we're both being honest, it's the first 20 minutes of a pilot, which is the first episode of any TV series. So that's different than a comprehensive, everything gets answered short film. And so I realized without that context, people are looking at this maybe as more of an experimental film.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting to go toe to toe with the best in the world at the biggest festivals out of genre. And so what I did was I started switching to pilots, and now it's starting, this acceptance rate's increasing. And so I wouldn't have been able to get there had I not had that maybe you're just not there yet assessment. And so thank you. It's still in process and progress, that's for sure. You know, this not being a victim or not resting, it's easy.
Sure.
Man, it's easy. It's comfortable.
It is. It is comfortable. But there's this staying with it and sticking to it, because I tell people, you may find that this is not for you in
Mm-hmm.
like a year, 2 years, and there's no shame in that. Like, go after this, and then there's just some people who stay in this because they don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. And then there's people who stay into this because like they love this, and they've been through like the ups and downs and the everything, uh and you're a person who sticks with this because like you love this, you're passionate about it, you have something to say, and you know it, and you do have the talent, and you have the talent to also like grow and build this and continue to get better, right? And this is the reflection that I'm asking. Like, a lot of times people will just quit and just go,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get into all this stuff, this sucks, like I'm done, in like I'm not going to progress. And you can have that period of time and just go, man, this sucks, like I'm done with this, blah blah
Yeah,
blah blah.
for sure.
But then you come back to the table and you're like, okay, that's over. How do we figure this out? What's really going on? How can I look at this
Mm-hmm.
objectively? You know what I mean? Because you look at, bro, how many films have we submitted? How many films, including like sketches and short films, have we done that like one will never see the light of day? That
Yeah.
never see the light of day because of like some little thing that we learned, and it's like, oh, you should be at this level because you've made
Mm-hmm.
this much, but you're making work that's here, and like you have to adjust. Like, why did this make? And a lot of people just quit doing that,
Yeah.
uh, and stop. But that's what I'm talking about. You keep growing. You keep like putting it.
Thank you. Yeah. This year, like for me, or 2022, obviously it was a big year personally, but professionally, like I had goals and they were a lot simpler than they were in the past. My goal last year was to get better at writing character because I kept getting the note at the highest level now. Man, your storytelling world, like, da, 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 it's so great. But the character, and I'm like, well, it's probably the biggest note any writer gets, right? And I've been avoiding it for years.
Mm,
And so I spent this year and I really, really went after it. And that means avoiding what I know and trying to learn. I read, I listened, I failed. And in December, I caught a writer's high that lasted 2 weeks. And I wrote 60 fresh pages over 3 projects that I feel like entrenched the it's like my work showed up, my talent showed up, and my inspiration showed up all
yeah,
together, and that created the high. And I was able to literally like be present to the fact that I've gotten better.
yeah,
I was like, wow, I look, I understand because it used to be like I don't even understand really what they're saying. I'm not gonna fuck with it. Because when people will be like, yeah, you want to like the character will like speak to you. I'm like, it never happens to me. And now it's happening where I'm like, oh yeah, they're doing this. I'm not writing that. They're doing that. And
yeah.
so that took a year of just focused shit eating, really.
And that's the hard work that I'm talking about, right? It's easy, and this is what so many people do. This is what I was doing with auditions. Is
Mm-hmm.
like everybody hates auditioning. Auditioning is the worst. So I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
get better at it, right? I'm like, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
talented actor. Like, it's
Yeah.
going to happen. No, it's
Yeah.
like you're a talented writer, and you could just
Mm-hmm.
go. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
everybody has trouble with character, but no, like the hard work is going. Oh shit, I got to go back and relearn. I got to go back and like shake myself up. Like, this is how I write, and like, does this
Mm-hmm.
suffer? Does my storytelling suffer because of my character? And it's like this painful experience, but that's the hard work. So again, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it, man.
Just coming back from bathroom break. Thanks, guys. Pee like a racehorse. We're talking about hard work and all that good stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the projects. Like, what was your experience? How'd you come to Birds Without Feathers?
Oh my gosh. So you want to talk about putting
Which
yourself uh uh
which was a feature film you acted in, right? Did you
yeah,
produce or any of that?
just acted in. It it's interesting, right? We'll say just acted in for right now. But this love for art and love for artistry and whatnot. So the way I got cast in that is the director saw me watching a play.
That's amazing. I never heard that.
Yeah. So she was at a play and she's like, I watched you watching this play more than I watched the play.
Yeah, because you're in it.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like always, I'm just like, yeah, I'm so like into it, right?
Similar to like Kathleen Randazzo in that sense, where she watches
Yeah,
and she's like, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's very like you start to understand Jeff Goldblum a little bit more, like
hmm
how
Yeah,
every
Jeff
like
was a teacher of ours.
it's like you're like consuming the performance and like it's hitting
hmm
all of the senses and it's just like right. And so anyway, we went and had lunch and then she sent me a short of hers and super talented. Man, like just instantly was like, wow, she has her own style and her own voice and it's very like her and she knows like exactly what she wants. So we had lunch and I was like, yeah, I'd love to act with you. And she's like, great. Here's like the process. I'll give you, I'm filming it as I can. So I'll send you like a couple of pages. I was like, do you have a whole script? She's like, no, I know the story in my head, but I write this. And she might have had a script, but she was just sending us like a page at a time, a page at a time. And
Hmm.
so like that's how I got involved in it. And she was just very much like she would tell me kind of the essence of this character, and then there was like a writing process to it. And that's why I said like, yeah, I was just acting, but
Mm.
it's very
It
interesting.
happens, that's for sure. Yeah, some hybrid positions on independent films for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I got on Birds Without Feathers, which actually it's just you never know. You
Yeah, where
never
did it go? Slam Dance?
slam dance.
Which
Slam
isn't, I mean, if you guys don't know, that's one of the biggest ones you can get into.
And what was interesting is I almost had back to back movies in slam dance, back to back features. One of my good friends,
Whoa.
Stevens, he did this movie Rocksteady Row and wanted to cast me in it
Great
and
title.
just didn't work out. And like
Mm.
both features premiered like Birds Without Feathers and then Rocksteady Row
Whoa.
after. And so like that whole crowd was there and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, what an interesting year. But yeah, went to Slam Dance and then like went all over Munich, went all over the place and really did well. And I'm super surprised at how many people walk up to me and just go, hey, Birds Without Feathers. And I'm like, how did you see? And they're like, I really like loved your work in that, and I got other jobs because of that.
Wow.
So I just go,
Good.
you never know.
You never know. You never know. That's why you always treat people well as best you can.
Yeah.
Wow. What was your experience on Richard Peter Johnson, who Gabe plays in a way the nemesis,
Right.
the antagonist, and because a lot happened, and I'll just I'll storyboard it real quick for the audience. Gabe and I were a part of a sketch comedy group that ultimately I give Gabe the solo credit of founding because he really held us together, especially earlier on. That's my perspective. You're welcome to adjust it, but that's how I feel about it. We were a few years into the group and we were doing a lot of sketches, and there had been months of chat about a feature. But as we learned, with a big group becomes big bureaucracy, and the ship can move slower. I'm so thankful for Gibbons because it gave us no stakes business lessons,
Yeah.
and or at least that's how I took it. And
Yeah.
so I did maybe a squirrely thing and signed us up for Kickstarter without asking the group, and we raised the money, $10,000, largely in part to Gabe's family and Gabe's push. But I remember there being some consternation. We were trying something epic. We're trying to do a movie that we could cast our whole group in. We almost got there. We had to lose a few parts, unfortunately. We do the movie, we film it, we edit it, and then I'm so burnt out, I hand it off to Gabe and Devin and Jeff, I believe, and they see it all the way through with the distribution. And the original first rough cut, it was a 2 hour and 4 minute cut, and mostly what we had to trim was your storyline. And a lot of you still in there, but I'm just kind of painting the picture like it was a big immersive experience for you that we never really get to talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, man, definitely learned a lot about leadership through that, and just like in general. And that's like one of those things where it's like, oh man, I look back, and wanting people's career for them more than they want it for themselves, and just like, instead of just going like, this is the business, this is exactly what, so we did get like this huge sort of business lesson through that. And we had put up a ton of like shows, and this is something I don't even know if you know. And people at Playhouse, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the people who were old school Playhouse West, there was a long gap where plays weren't being put up. Nothing was being put up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And uh and with the comedy program there with Jim and
Jim Neve.
Jim Neve, and he was, he's putting up shows there, which is no small task. You know what I mean? And just doing this, and then here comes this group that is filming stuff and doing things and putting up shows, and those shows were, oh my god, the most stressful things in the world. And we're doing this, and then then the movie gets presented. I remember we're at this rehearsal space, which is interesting. It's 1 block away from where I am now. Just drove over there the other day.
Wow.
This is the space where all of this happened. And I remember you coming in and being like, yep, sign us up, doing a Kickstarter, doing this no matter what. So you're either in or you're out. And obviously, that's going to
No.
piss people off. And it's like this dual thing. I'm like, oh, Sean.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, fuck off, but I was like, bro.
No. You were very reasonably upset.
But also I'm like, okay, where
you didn't beat me up. You didn't beat me up about it. You didn't make me feel ashamed. You were just like, oh, we could have done this better, right?
yeah, because like, and then it goes into the reflection of like, okay, where are my leadership skills at? Where are my leadership skills? And I like the approach of like, hey, this is getting done. This is getting done. And the people that are serious about this, because we had people in the group that weren't serious, that weren't,
ultimately,
and there was different phases of all of that. And I think like some of those people have grown into like really productive, fantastic artists. Well, just at the time, but
Yep.
So it was this like it was a time of reflection for sure, you know.
Mm.
And then my gosh, man, I got super cut for that film.
Yeah, you were fucking shredded. Johnny Lightning gave it lightning chops as his beard. It
Like,
was
oh, yeah.
incredible.
And I
Yeah,
dove
you were looking good, brother. You were looking good.
and the case you got to look back and I just go, man. Even then, I was like, man, how do I get like shredded for this? And Devin, like, I show up and he's like, oh my gosh, dude. He's like,
Yeah.
what the hell? And I was like,
Yeah.
really?
Devin,
And
the director, yeah.
but it was like, so yes, put a lot into this, put so much time and effort into this, and then like, yeah, a lot of it did get cut out, but I was also like, yeah, so what? And I truly was. I truly
No,
was.
you were easy about that. I just know, like, for me, even I was like, I love watching Gabe. It was best for the movie, which
Yeah,
is always that's it for me.
yeah,
But the stuff that falls away because of that, like we lost Amanda's whole role,
right,
Brian Lalley's whole role.
right.
Explaining those things to them was not fun. And then
Molly's
all
role.
majority. Yes, yes, yes. Holly
And like,
Garnier's
I don't
role. Yeah.
know, but I mean, like, listen, Holly, I don't, and you can, I don't know if the, but Holly literally got naked
Yeah.
and
Oh
like
yeah.
was
Like this is one
like,
of our teachers, incredible actress. Yeah. Super historied in Hollywood. And
that's
she's
what I'm saying and she's like game for this, and she's like, okay,
yeah,
this
she's
isn't
so
how it
cool.
was, and just was gracious and just does the work, and then like I get it, like she gets cut out and she's like upset about that, and it's like
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
hard to explain that like, hey, this is how movies go. You get
Hmm.
everybody gets cut out, but like I have
Especially as we're finding out, we didn't even really know. We're learning too, right? It's not like we knew ahead. Stuff's gonna hit the floor, guys.
right,
Like that's what I learned about Helmet. I was like, you can get because that was the first project I ever did where everything we shot, I knew ahead of time.
right,
And so after I got everything back, some things still didn't work. So you
yeah.
can get everything you need or want, and it could still not work. And that's part of the mystery and magic of filmmaking. But we were definitely on the beginning of that journey of education.
And it was, and it's such a great education. And here's the thing, like as stressful as that was, it was beautiful. I learned things like because I have legitimately felt like, hey, if I'm asking people that weren't part of Gibbons Tale to be in this, to be in it,
Mm.
um, that I'm giving you an opportunity here, you know, and we
Yeah, you
go in.
got Tom Barry to be on it. That was amazing.
Yeah,
And his house, like it was a huge get as a producer. Yeah.
I mean, like people that were like extras, and there weren't like
Mm.
extras in our film. It
Mm-mm.
was like
Mm-mm.
people had like you know,
Yeah.
and I remember people just going, no, I'm going to a movie this weekend, or I'm going to and I'm like, what's going on? I was like, are you
Mm-hmm.
kidding me? And I go, okay, that's interesting. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. You know, it's like
Yeah.
either you don't believe in what I'm doing, or like you think you're like way past it. And it was an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing that like stuck with me. I'm not holding grudges. I just remember I go,
You remember shit like that though. I know I do. I'm like,
I
oh really?
oh, this was without like explanation. Like I'd much rather just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I can't. That stuff doesn't stick. But when people were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I'm going to the movies, I'm like, wait, you told me you want to be an actor.
Yeah,
You told me you
that's
want to be
right.
an actor, and I am like, well, how much does it pay? How much are you getting paid? Like, obviously, like if people who have or SAG or Cloud or have this are asking me that,
Yeah,
like,
people who've booked jobs, not your first or second job. We were giving people
like
a first crack at the bat. Yeah.
so. so that was like an interesting learning experience. And then like afterwards, like the distribution, it was frustrating. You know what I mean? It did
Yeah.
feel like you were like, "Yep, I did this," and I walk away, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Oh man."
Lesson learned. Yeah, for sure on my end, not to do
But
that.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, you and I had talks about that later. You and I,
Hmm.
and I think it was good that I don't have to sugarcoat how I was feeling in that
Yeah.
moment, you know?
Don't blame you at all. I was
And
also burnt the fuck out. For me, at my capacity in life, that's the best I could do. I couldn't even make another choice. I was literally just like, I didn't make another movie for 5 years. I
yeah,
was genuinely tapped from that experience.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
know it. And I know it. And it was unfortunate because like the thing that was the hardest about that is like when the business lessons started to have stakes,
Hmm.
me forming an LLC in order to do this distribution for the film and
Hmm.
not knowing like, oh, people just shut down their LLCs after the film is made. And it's something different. I had no
Mm.
concept. So then I just have this like LLC that's like, hey, pay us $800 a year. And I'm like,
Yeah, they're expensive.
and then
Yeah.
like all this stuff got away, and then the distribution company like disappeared, and it was hard to get to them, and then we couldn't
Yeah.
get and we had to
Yeah.
get
To
get
this day, if you try and follow the paper trail, I have no idea who's getting paid from that movie.
good job, masterful. They're gone. Like I can't
Yeah.
even,
Yeah.
and so that was a huge learning lesson, and then to like also you look at your work and stuff that you're proud of, and then then the reviews come in, of things, and like reading what people think of stuff and stuff that you're not seeing. And it's not like you can definitely be proud and go, hey, this has things, but when someone's like, this movie was dog shit, this was like a terrible waste of
Yeah.
time, like
Yeah.
it's
I know
interesting.
exactly the review you're talking about too. Fuck, it makes me laugh now because I'm just like, you fucking watched it, bitch. We
Yeah,
got you. If it's that bad, right? Like,
yeah,
for me, my base is so simple. Does it make sense? Does it entertain? And did we treat people well as we made it?
right,
And we mostly did that. We were
yeah,
still learning how to treat people well,
yeah,
but it makes sense logically
yeah,
and it's funny. And if that's not your brand, cool. Especially for 10 grand, we made that.
yeah.
I challenge any other filmmaker to do what we did.
Oh, hugely. And just from Gibbons, like,
We have James Franco in it. I mean, it's crazy.
yeah, yeah, and just like, yeah, we did, for what we had and for what we knew and for what people were
Yeah.
doing at the time.
Yeah.
No way, no way.
I know.
So I never take that away from us, and we did like a great thing, just like those shows, just like plays we were putting up at Playhouse. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know this. And I don't even know if the like teachers at Playhouse realize this, which I'll be very like, but we sparked people putting up plays back at Playhouse West. We
Oh yeah,
sparked.
Holly would tell us that a lot. She's like, guys, it's I always thought I had the opposite. I was like, yeah, right. Like you're just blowing smoke. But since I've run into her twice in the last year, she said the same thing. She's like, like it does. There hasn't been a group like you guys since. And I was like,
Yeah,
really? That's kind of upsetting. Like, it feels easy. It was not. You know what I mean? Like we just did it,
yeah,
and we were there for. I mean, a lot of people have fallen off. Isn't that crazy? Like,
yeah.
really, who's really hanging in the pocket? It's not many. It's less than five out of
It's
what we start with 20. Yeah.
yeah. We started with 24, went down to 6, then went to 8, stayed at 8 for a long time, went up to 18 for a short time, and then back
Hmm.
down to 11, and we stayed at 11 for a long time until we
And then
switched
it
it.
evolved into the improv team,
Right.
which was like ultimately 5 people in the last few years.
Yep.
What was your how do you advocate for improv in your teaching or when people ask you about acting, and what's your experience with improv? Because it doesn't
Uh,
get talked about enough.
yeah, so Meisner, which is what I base my teaching out of, is an improvisational
Mm.
way of acting. It is like being
Yeah.
in the moment uh, and then finding these rules and how they apply, right? And then like improv, it's it, we'll say like again the stuff that I value it just helps you like truly like flow with anything. You can switch anything
Mm.
up. You can be like present in the moment, and it absolutely informs my acting of being
Yeah,
present.
it makes people directable. Like, the game New Choice, like that, just even that adherence to being able to switch an intention on a dime is a great skill. Maybe not in every role or every movie will need that skill, but at times throughout your career, you'll have to know how to switch on a dime.
But it gives you freedom. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing: it's like improv gives you this freedom of thought of yourself. It gives you like access to like your imagination and yourself
Mm.
and what's possible. And it's
We would have
it
some
is
wacky
such
ones.
it is such a beautiful like art form, and it truly is to see like people do improv on a masterful level is like it's
It seems
incredible.
so simple.
Yeah,
It seems so simple. Like they're just at the kitchen sink. And you're like, oh, because they're making it up. And that's the magic of improv when people
yeah.
are so in cahoots with each other. But that's really just simple, actually listening. Yeah, it's really amazing.
And there's there, there's at its core, there's no like pure form of that.
Hmm.
What your partner says literally dictates what happens.
Yeah. My ethos, like because I prefer more, maybe not prefer, but I statistically am more straight man.
Yeah.
And I would say historically, at least when we played together, you were more character, but could definitely do straight man as well. But I think you enjoyed more character swings.
Uh,
And what I've noticed is just like the more neutral I can enter a scene, the more honest and if you just be honest, whatever the circumstances, but if you're honest, the first wacky thing will take care of itself
yeah.
because you're human and we're weird. It's when we start forcing shit that it all starts to go haywire because all of a sudden you're entering on an inverted axis of understanding already. It's like, well, I don't know what honest is because the world's been blown apart. So I just
Yeah.
try and keep that world intact as long as possible until it's super clear what the game is.
Yeah, and you want to talk about? I mean, we go back to you brought up this moment of like that bag getting pulled off my head in stocking fields. It's like how does improv not just infuse into you and have you
Mm-hmm.
like make those choices because you are living in an imaginary world,
That's
right?
right.
You
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at our stage at Playhouse where we did this show for so long, and it is a black box,
Yeah, literally.
and you
We'd forget
have
chairs sometimes.
yeah, yeah. And just like you're in these worlds, and the more you can instantly immerse yourself into the world and the circumstance, like the the more you can just listen and play and things make sense to you. You're like, oh, it's dark out. You naturally just put yourself in that,
Mm-hmm.
and so, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely advocate for improv in your acting training. Even when people go, I want to be just a dramatic actor, I go, good, go take improv. Go take improv.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's not all like I remember going and watching Centurions and uh
Masterful.
yeah and it was one of those groups, but I watched it. I didn't laugh once, and it was the most like captivating piece of theater. And it was all improv. And like they weren't trying to be funny, they were real, and then they'd have like something crazy happen. But I'm like, oh, and then go with it like how real people would, and it's like, oh my gosh. And some of the best like dramatic acting, like in an improv scene, if you like sell that drama, it's like
Yeah. It
incredible.
changes the room. Like the currency of the room changes. It's incredible. Yeah.
It's incredible. And then just
We had a
like getting,
few, and
yeah,
then what?
it's just, I said just, and then just like getting up on stage, getting in front of people, at times like knowing what being humiliated is, and like, and and just like
We've played to no audience before, many
you have
times.
one person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
How many improv shows you think you've done? I got a guess between 1,000 and 2,000,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and you've done more.
1,000. Yeah,
Like if you
very,
think about all the shows we were doing early days with Neeb, there's like sometimes 5, 6 a week, maybe 8,
yeah,
9 a week. I counted sometimes with like our weekly shows, and we did that for years.
yeah, for
Yeah.
years. So definitely, yeah,
Uh,
way
yeah, and
over.
it teaches you about like a day job and a commitment. Like we had that show for almost 4 years, and we saw the height of it where it was standing room only for
Yeah,
like a year and a half to where we could barely keep the lights on, so to speak.
yeah,
And that was the end of it. And we still showed up until we couldn't. And I just remember not wanting to be there a lot of the time. But it was like practice or working out. As soon as the whistle blew, it was fun to play. But like showing up, because it was what you just said, we were able to experience a little humbling at the
wow.
end there. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. As we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what was your experience on Helmet, which is the pilot we filmed in May of this year, or 2022 rather.
It really is. Sean, you and I have been working together since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I sent I sent that Gibbons Tale email on December 29th, 2009. You had responded. You and I had, done some improv stuff a little
Isn't
bit.
that your birthday? Or the
21st is
27th? 21st, okay.
21st is my birthday, and I
That was close.
sent that one. Yeah, trust me, I'm terrible with dates, so yeah, that's hard. Um, so you and I have been working together since 2009. Uh, I mean, we've been working together for 13 years, and Helmet was this culmination of everything I was talking about with you, with the hard work that you've put in, with the hard work that I have put in, um, with that. Oh, you went and shot a movie that took you a week, and it's like, no, this. I went and shot a pilot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we went and shot a pilot that took us 13 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I remember watching the edit at your house and going, I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else would like see like
Mm-hmm.
that little thing or appreciate this little thing. I
Mm-hmm.
saw it, see it in your artistry because I've seen you. My experience on Helmet was I I get to show up. And here's the thing: is like we talk about the industry, like, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but I show up, I get to play with my friends and make something great because it's great.
Thank
And
you.
uh, what you were going through with Helmet, because I, you know, got your initial message and was like, well, we're definitely not shooting Helmet.
Mm.
It.
My dad passed 3 weeks before suddenly, yeah.
And we show up and we have this like flow of working.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that's there wants to be there and shows up with their A game. So what I was talking about with Brian Lally is like, look at this. Everybody just shows up with their A game because you want to be better for your friends than you want to like. And from our side, from my side, the only hiccup that I saw that entire time was lunch was a little late. One day.
Yeah. Man,
And
you learn, live and you learn about that, that's for sure.
but I mean, like, nobody cared. I mean, obviously,
no, everybody was great. Yeah, I cared.
But because we've been on other
for
sets.
you guys, I cared for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I cared.
I've been on so many sets that are dumpster fires. Absolute dumpster fire. We had a friend that was working on a big show and was like, "Are you kidding me? They had a burning car on a bridge, a bunch of burning cars on a bridge that were overturned, and like
they forgot to call the guy who could do the stunt. Yeah, it was a wild misuse of funds and time.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, on a hit TV show. Yeah.
Dropping the ball, and it just and me working on TV and me working in bigger movies and just going, wow, you guys don't have this together, and I don't understand how, because I'm used to coming to our sets that we had to like grind through before, like Richard Peter Johnson, and even before we made 52 short films a year, and lots of them nobody will ever see, but now we get to show up. Obviously, there's a lot more pressure on you. You're directing but Sean, you could not have done that without the work you put in before.
Totally.
Hey, man, you directed. I have a flow with you. You were acting in one scene. You know, it's not my place to direct. And I'm like,
no, it was amazing. I appreciate that you did it and the way you did it. And I wanted to bring this up anyway, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah, and it was fucking great. It was so like great. Like you show up, man, you know, the people who stick around and the people you want to work with just like bring something. And so I just get to watch people work and just get to watch people like have fun and be immersed in it and like have this great time. And it's go time, and it's like, here's this, you trust me with like what I'm doing, and you're so great. If there's something that you're not getting, I don't have an ego about it. You're like, hey, I need this, I need this. Great, let's do it.
You guys are great. And to be clear, I was doing this scene, and Gabe was in the scene, but he was outside my coverage, and he basically just was. He pulled me aside gently and in the right moment, and was like, "Hey, like really challenged my reality." I feel like I was like, "Hey, this," and it just put me into an extra gear. It gave me another 10%. Then that's the take I use in the edit. And one of my favorite parts of Helmet with you and Brian in particular was, if you remember in the script originally, is you're playing backgammon. And like a few nights before, I text you, I'm like, I think it might be more interesting if y'all were arguing over the rules to backgammon. And I could tell you, I was like, these guys are going to take off with that. And I mean, I think those are some of the best moments. So those double shots of you and Brian are just, I'm so thankful for those. And if you watch just your story, and it attracts too, like there's a whole thing with the game. So man, it was an excellent experience from my end. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, it was great. I mean, I just go, it doesn't get better. I mean, Eddie and I were sitting and talking, and it's like, how does it get better than this? Like, this is such a culmination of the everything the highs, the lows, the euphoria, the depression, the self doubt, the false confidence, the actual confidence, the am I a phony, imposter syndrome, the late nights, the rejection, the constant rejection, right?
The silent no's.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and and then you have these great moments where we get to come back and everybody has like so earned it, you know? And I mean with people that truly like it's fine if you walk into Hollywood and they're like, "Hey, great. Like, yep, you're on this show," and you take off and you're like, "I don't understand why this is so hard." But and I'm so happy I don't have to like hate on that. I'm so happy
Yeah.
that I've like released myself of being like upset about that. But this group, I know, I know what has gone into this. And so like for me, like Helmut was just this magical thing that and it's beautiful, man. And you telling me like, hey, like what came out was what was in my head. And bro, that piece is something that like I love. I think it's great. And there it is, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, you're one of the reasons I always look to hire you if I can. Like I think you know this, but I've pitched you on every film I've worked on, including The Wheel.
Mm,
And some things just work out and some don't. Some are in
yeah.
my control, obviously. But beyond talent, you're amazing to be around and you're reliable. And you wouldn't believe how far that goes. And that's just part of this business is proving reliability, whether that's commercially or that you won't freeze in front of a director.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you. Gonna wrap it up here. I would love to do this again because I feel like we could talk for like 6 more hours.
We could.
Uh,
I'd love to,
but
man.
let's look here, 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 here. No, I'm just kidding. There's only one camera. Uh, what are you working on right now? And if someone wants to hire you, where should they go? Like to your reps or to an email or to Instagram? Some people prefer to handle certain things different
Yeah,
ways.
I love it. So what I'm working on right now is called First Read Radio. Sean's on the first season, but man,
So good.
just took off. And it's again like this passion project that I love. It's turning short films into radio plays, and just learned that last year we're in the top 10% of podcasts.
Wow, congrats on that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
Wow. I mean, it's so well produced and written and acted. It's so good. I had an absolute ball when we did our episode.
Yeah, man. And so definitely checking that out and we're getting into that and oh my gosh, so excited about that. And that's just part of like a bigger picture doing a play with Wolfgang
Great.
in March. And I obviously Stalking Fields came out a
Mm-hmm.
movie Eight Found Dead that I did that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
actually because of Birds Without Feathers, that director wanted to work with me for years.
Wow.
Movie,
Wow.
that's how he found me. Is doing amazingly well.
Wow.
Won Best Picture at Screamfest, and just is like,
Congrats on that.
thank you. It was, yeah, it was. So that how people can get a hold of me, Gabriel Grier at Hotmail.
Hotmail. Coming in hot.
If you hate emailing to Hotmail, you can go gabrielgrier at gmail.com.
And if you hate that, you can go to Yahoo. And if you hate that, right on, brother.
And I'm at MTA. You can reach out to Lauren Gibson. Yeah, so that's how. Or like contact Sean and just be like, hey,
That too.
how do we get that guy?
That too. That too. All right, brother. I love you.
Love you, man.
I'm gonna hang up when we stop. That's just how I do it.
Yeah,
Let's do this again. Call me. I love you.
love you, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.